Inequalities with one variable can be plotted on a number line, as in the case of x is greater than or equal to 2. The solution to an inequality is a point which, when substituted for the variable or variables, make the inequality a true statement. The points blank are solutions to the above inequality. Okay, so this is the inequality that they gave me, right? X is greater than or equal to 2. So on the number line, I would go to what number? 2. Okay, and I'm going to put a point above 2. Do I want that point to be filled in or open? Filled in, right? Because it has the equal to sign with it. So I should have a filled in point at 2. And it says x is greater than 2. Well, which direction do things get greater? If I move to the left or right? So I would draw an arrow from that point towards the right. So if you have your arrow pointing in the wrong direction, fix that real quick. Okay?
How do we know if it's open or closed?
With the greater than or equal to symbol. So if it has the equal to, it's closed. If it doesn't have an equal to, then it's open. Huh? What is it? Yes, exactly. That's the equal to part. Yes, the line is the equal to. All right. So then they ask which one of these points are solutions. Okay, well, where does this thing start at? What letter? C. And then what else is included in our solution? D. Anything else? And E. Right. All of those fall in our solution. Right? Everything from C this direction is part of our answer. Okay. So keeping that information in mind, we are now going to graph inequalities on a coordinate plane. So instead of just being on a number line that runs left and right, we're now going to be on a coordinate plane with an x and y axis. Okay? So we'll have to graph a line like y equals mx plus b, and then figure out if the inequality is greater than or less than and shade above or below. So here it says inequalities with two variables are plotted on a coordinate plane. In this example, they plotted y is greater than or equal to x. So this is the same as the equation y equals x. They just changed out the equal sign for an inequality. So that means I graph it the exact same way I would a normal equation. So remember, plus b, what normally would be out here is where I start. There's nothing there, so where does this thing start at? 0. Good. So it starts at 0, 0. And since there's not a number in front of x, that means my slope is 1. So I just go up 1 and over 1, which you can see that's exactly what they did to graph that line that's there on your paper. Just went up 1 and over 1, right? Okay. So now that we know where that equation came from, the inequality is going to affect where the graph is shaded. So this equation said y is greater than or equal to x, right? So are things greater than when they're above or below something? Above. So that's why they shaded everything above that line. Okay? So it says the points blank are going to be solutions to our inequality, because for each point y value is greater than or equal to the x value, the shaded region is also known as the solution region, because all points which lie in this region represent solutions to the inequality. So what they're saying is any point that falls inside of our shaded area is an answer. Okay? So what all letters or points are inside of our shaded area? What did we say? A, B, and C. So if you notice, B is on the line, and is it an open point or a closed point at B? Closed, and it's on a solid line, right? So it's included, just like our point C was included because that's where it started, right? you'll flip it over onto the back. Okay, we're now going to graph some of our own. They give us steps to follow for graphing these inequalities. Okay, it says first you may need to solve for y. So this step means put it in y equals mx plus b form, if it's not already. Step 2 says you're then going to graph, and then when you go put the line in between your points after you've plotted all your points, you're going to use a solid line if it's a greater than or equal to or less than or equal to symbol. But if there is no equal to sign, like these two inequalities right here, you connect your points with a dotted line. Right? Then it says you shade below if it's a less than or equal to, shade above if it's greater than or equal to. So this is a little key for us to check to decide dotted or solid line, do I shade above or below? All right? Okay, so let's look here at number 1. Step 1 is to put it in y equals mx plus b form. Is this one in y equals mx plus b form? Yeah, so it's good to go, right? Y is by itself. Okay, so then they ask us to identify m. Which number in that equation is my slope? -2, very good. And then they also want to know which number is the b, the y-intercept. The -3, good. Okay, out of those two, which one tells me where to start? The -3. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to my graph, give myself a starting point at -3. All right, since my slope is -2, how does that mean I'm going to move to plot my next point? Yes, down 2 and over 1. Very good. All right, now before you connect those dots, remember, sometimes we have a solid line and sometimes we have a dotted line. That's what step number 2 says, right? Okay, so my inequality is less than or equal to. So on number 2, did they say that means we want to use a solid line or a dotted line? Solid, very good. So I am going to connect my points with a solid line. Okay, step number 3 says now we need to decide if we want to shade above or below the line. So here's the inequality. Does that inequality say that we should be shading below or above? Below, right? That's what it says. Below is one of those two, which is exactly what we have. So I'm going to shade underneath the line. So anything that falls underneath that line, I shade. So I would shade all of this area since it's underneath the line. All right. Okay, let's do another one. On number 2, is this one already in the y equals mx plus b form? Yes, already got y by itself, so that's good. We don't have to do anything there. What number is my m? 1/2, good. And what number is my b? Very good. All right, so where does that mean we start at? Good. And that slope tells me I'm going to move where? Up 1 and over 2, good. All right, now before I go back and connect those points, I have to look at the inequality. According to what they said here on number 2, with this inequality that they gave me, am I going to have a dotted or a solid line? What does it say? Go read. Dotted. Right? Dotted means it does not have an equal to sign, and we do not have an equal to sign. Okay? So I'm going to go back and connect my points with a dotted line. Okay, so this time we used a dotted line. Then the last thing that we have to check is where we should shade. So number 3 said below if it's facing this direction, above if it's facing this direction. So which way are we going to shade this time? Above. So I'm going to shade everything that is above this line. So that would be all of this. All right. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, on number 3. Is that one already in y equals mx plus b form? Yes. Okay, so we don't have to rearrange anything. That's good. What's my m this time? And what's my b? Very good. All right, so now I'm going to graph it. Where am I going to start? Good. Okay, and since my slope is 1, how do I move to my next point? Up 1 over 1. Very good. All right. Now I'm going to look at that inequality. Is there an equal to sign under that symbol? No. So am I going to have a dotted or solid line? Dotted, right? That's what it says. If you're not sure, guys, don't guess. Please read. Number 2 says solid if it has the equal signs, dotted if it doesn't, and ours doesn't, okay? So, I'm going to connect those with a dotted line. All right, and then the last thing I check for is where I'm supposed to shade. So, I have a greater than symbol. So where am I supposed to shade? Above. Good. Again, if you're not sure, please don't guess. It has it written for you on step number 3. So you don't have to guess. You can check it. Okay? If it's facing this way, and you look at step number 3, it says if it's facing that way, we shade above. All right, we got one more. All right, on this last one, am I going to have to rearrange or is it ready to go? Ready to go. So what's my M? Good. All right, and what's my B? Very good. So where is this graph going to start at? Good. All right. And then how am I going to move to get to my next point? Good. All right. Now I look at this inequality right here. According to step number 2, am I going to have a dotted or solid line? Solid. Very good. It has the equal to sign, then I put a solid line. All right. Then the last thing I check for is where I'm going to shade. If I have this symbol, so it's pointing this way, do I shade above or below? Very good. So I shade everything underneath there. Good job. So we already know how to graph lines. The only new thing is deciding if it's dotted or solid, and then where to shade. Do we shade above or below? And you can check what it says on your notes if you don't know which one it is. All right? Okay.